Please note that though this is a spoiler-free review of the subject, I do spoil the series and/or franchise leading up to this particular entry. I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise, and this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video. These videos get long enough as it is. Put off by how long this video is, don't worry, I try to jam-pack my videos with as much content and as much detail as I possibly can. Anything I feel I can comment on and that I feel you might be interested in, I pretty much put in the video. I try not to repeat myself and talk fairly fast. Resident Evil, the final chapter. Yeah. It might be, but then it might not be. I just finished watching the midnight screenings on this film, and honestly, I agree with almost everything they said. And one thing I'm going to straight up quote is, this movie is many things, but it is never boring. And that, yeah. Starting with plot. This one rewrites the entire plot up to this point. You know, Anderson never resolves anything in his films. He has no interest, integrity, or patience when it comes to that, or to sticking with an idea for more than one movie. Each of these retcons something about at least one of the ones before it. But this is still a whole new level. Just briefly, I gotta point out that the opening music really sounded like a Danny Elfman superhero score, at least some parts of the music. But yeah, basically, as we're told in the opening, Marcus created Umbrella. His daughter Alicia had this disease where she ages prematurely, so yeah, basically the two of them are replacing the Ashford family. And the Red Queen is based on Alicia. And they actually used the T-virus to help people. It wasn't something they made that originally. Where, you know, like, before this movie, I really got the sense that they were, like, working on it. And the first movie, it just about says this was a weapon. This was designed to be a viral weapon, and there's this testing, you know, research facility where they're working on it, and then this one, you know, thing of it gets out. And then in this, at least you know, there's at least one case where they put out, and you know, they weren't calling it the T-virus, but they put out like a product that had the T-virus in it, and it zombified someone. And then, yeah, Marcus is like, oh, we have to, you know, we can't, you know, we can't just cover this up. We have to take this thing completely, you know, get rid of this thing, or take it off the market, something like that. And then Isaacs has Wesker like suffocate him, and like Alicia walks into the room and kind of sort of sees it happening, and then Isaacs is just, don't worry, sweetie, your father and I are just having a conversation. And I guess she's an unbelievably stupid. Like the actress is like 9 when they, you know, 8 or 9 when they made this, and I think that's, yeah, I think she was about that age. At about that age, you could tell the difference between, like, when someone's committing violence against someone and having a conversation. It's not like she's, you know, 3 or 4. Again, unless I'm completely misremembering that scene. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, and, you know, Isaacs takes custody of Alicia, who apparently just kind of sort of accepts this whole thing. And, you know, the Red Queen is based on, like, the memories of Alicia. And, you know, at this point in the movie, I'm like, okay, I guess this is what we're gonna get. They're completely retconning the first two movies, and then it says that those two movies still happened. It's amazing. This movie has no attention span. It's almost like they you know, that's something that I kind of realized not long ago, and I don't think I got around to writing it down, but when you watch a Paul W. S. Anderson movie, you kind of get the sense that every so often, like, the you know, a new, this was written by, I think I'm not 100% certain if Paul W. S. Anderson was the only person writing all these movies, but he did write all of them. He didn't, like, give it away to someone, and it feels like with each of these that a person, you know, person A would write a scene, and then person B would continue writing, not completely knowing all the contents of the scene that person A wrote, and they're gonna just completely contradict something. And it's like, no, look, okay, you're following the scene. It's not a new movie entirely, but if you just go back a few pages and read the thing that was written, you're not gonna make this obvious mistake. And they keep doing it, and like every scene, almost every scene in a Paul W. S. Anderson movie feels like that. You know, if something happens where it's like, no, but that person knew not to do that, but that contradicts the thing that happened 5 minutes ago. And it's glorious. It's like either you hate these movies, or you just kind of surrender and enjoy how incredibly stupid they are. And I will have to admit, I've always kind of gone back and forth between the two of them, and I wasn't entirely sure where I was gonna land on this one, but I kind of wanted it to be this, and it is very much this. I cannot. This movie is so stupid, but it's so fun as long as you just completely turn your brain off. But yeah. Anyway, you know, basically Alice is told that there are, like, the notes that I took, I believe I got this from Wikipedia, says 1,437. I feel like it was a different number in the movie, but it was something, or it was a few thousand, like that, something like that. Humans on the planet who aren't infected. And, you know, just finally we're actually given an indication of how many people are left. The virus spread far before the events of extinction, and this is the first time. I'm not saying, you know what, I enjoy a zombie movie where we don't really know, has this really spread to the entire world? But it's been, you know, yeah, at the start of extinction, it's spread really far. So this is the fourth movie that, and finally we get an indication. It's, yeah. But there is, you know, the antivirus, which has I just realized the antivirus has existed since the first movie. It's just now they're kind of trying to get to it. It seems like Alice could have stopped and thought, wait, there's an antivirus. Can I get that somewhere? But no, instead, you know, if whenever she gets to a, you know, keeping in mind, I already told you I'm spoiling this, and the text should be on the screen saying I am spoiling the first 5. Every time she arrives at an umbrella facility, she's like, I'm gonna blow this sucker to, you know, just there's no, okay, to be fair, the one on Afterlife, she's not the one destroying it, but it's, yeah, she's not exactly like scouring, did they have any antivirus here? It would make a lot of sense, given that it's the only, we know for a fact that there was antivirus, because because Isaacs in Extinction was pumping himself full of antivirus. He had access to antivirus, and according to this movie, it's just You don't need very much antivirus for it to be incredibly effective, according to this movie. So all they had to do was just get antivirus. And that's never been the goal before now, even though it's so huge. Like, in the other movies, it seems like, okay, you have to have, like, an injection of this, and if not too many hours have passed, then it will just completely take care of... I mean, if it's a new antivirus, then the movie really didn't make that completely clear. It seems like it was just the same antivirus, and it looks like the same antivirus. Now, if it is a completely new antivirus, then obviously disregard, but yeah. But yeah, she has 48 hours to enter the umbrella of the hive, under Raccoon City, and get the antivirus, and she could also get revenge on Wesker, who took her powers. And she meets back up with Claire, she meets other survivors, and they try to get to the hive, and of course it's like full of deadly traps. More so than the other ones. I guess the first movie, Extinction and Retribution, also have traps in underground umbrella facilities. The one on Afterlife didn't really. We didn't really see any traps. It's just the self-destruct thing. And yeah, Apocalypse and Afterlife has facilities but no traps. There is at least one umbrella facility in all 6 films. Sometimes only briefly. And I was wondering if the traps were going to be silly like the rest of the series. Yes, in fact, in some areas, new levels of silly. You say you watched RE Retribution. We all want to change the world. And just to get briefly political, as I am wont to do, I think I already used that line. Trump's meeting with Putin on Russian hacking, asking him twice, then letting it go, makes him sound like what he thinks of as strong is the very persuasive, tough ex-cop in that Simpsons episode, Cape Fear. And Trump is now saying that the wall at the Mexican border won't need to be everywhere on the border. Some places are hard to pass already, with mountains and rivers. It took him this long to figure that out. This man has never even played an Age of Empires game. What do you mean he's thinking of building it in real life? That's ridiculous. Back to the movie. Notes taken during viewing. Now, just to get to give examples of a few of the action scenes, there's this chase where I don't know what it's called in the game, but this flying thing, you see a bunch of them at the end of Retribution, flying thing chasing. In the I want to say it's the commentary track for Retribution, one of them, Paul W. Anderson specifically says, see, before humans had air superiority, but now that's gone because we have all these flying things. They barely have any, there's almost none of them in this movie. The whole air superiority thing, given it's not stated within the movie, but it's visually implied, oh no, how would we deal with all these? There at the end, there are several flying things. There are almost no flying things in this. Anyway, yeah, Chase is one of the leads in a Jeep, and there are a number of hand-to-hand fights, and I don't think there's a single one that isn't at least pretty cool. And there's this ruins of a skyscraper where they have like a medieval siege against a horde of zombies, and they like cover them in gasoline, set them on fire. And there are these umbrella kind of, not like classic World War II tanks, but like the modern tank, like the Tumbler kind of tank, and it's got miniguns and rocket launchers, and like the survivors, killing zombies. Some of them have like swords to kill. One guy's using like a nail gun. They've got SMGs. And there's this chase involving a pack of giant dogs with splitting headaches. And we do spend a decent amount of time in the hive. It's, it's not like some other Anderson films where the climax is way too short, even when it was the selling point. And yes, it's very varied and sometimes clever and creative action set-piece setups. And of course, as usual, you know, some of them are over way too fast. Some of them, you know, the over way too fast, even though they had a lot of build-up. No build-up, but then they go on for a while. Yeah. On plot. Like Retribution, this didn't even hit theaters here. I pre-ordered it as soon as I could and got it, you know, the 26th of June. You know, that was the way I would be able to watch it. And it cost me the same as other current DVD releases, or just about, not like extra, and I treat myself to it as I otherwise almost never buy current releases or anything else that isn't heavily discounted. And I made this review as soon as I could fit it into my schedule, because I can't help but look every time Paul crashes a dozen cars. It's fitting that I watch and review this on what's almost a Friday the 13th. And, you know, given that it was just Friday, it's Saturday today, and it was almost a Friday the 13th. And I've watched almost everything he's directed and most of what he's written to date, and am working on getting to watch the few of his that I haven't. I've only watched the first Death Race film, which is the only one he directed. I haven't watched Shopping, The Sight, El Cid, or Drift. Now, the first 3 Resident Evil movies are in my schedule, but not for a while. I wanted to get to this one as soon after it came out as I could, and not wait forever like I did with Retribution. And I had considered making more videos for Afterlife, but honestly, I think I will be making most of the points that I would be making if I made more videos on that in this video. So yeah, and I really don't think I'll be doing more videos on Retribution. I said everything. Again, there might have been a few things, and they're going to be in this video. Now, I have only played Resident Evil 2 2 times, but once for each character, and Resident Evil Survivor more time than is at all warranted, completing that one probably at least half a dozen times. In my defense, I really want to see all 3 paths, and then I wanted to see them again. As you can maybe also gather from the fact that I'm not completely hating on this, if something is enjoyable and I already have access to it, you know, if it's not like, yeah, then I might. Dude, again, I am not saying, if you want your action movies to be smart, and you should, this is not your movie. You know, I have, you know, far more, I care far more about the MCU, for example. Now, but yeah, you know, none of the other games, and I know almost nothing about the game series. I've watched, like, Phalos videos on the games and other, like, reviews, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't quite stick. I don't really care about the games, I'm sorry. I do care about the movies. And yeah, if it wasn't Paul W. Anderson, I probably wouldn't have kept watching this series. Okay, if it wasn't Anderson, but Mila was still in all of them, I might still watch them. But then there are a lot of Mila Jovovich movies that I haven't watched, and that I don't currently plan on watching. Yeah, if it's not Anderson, and you know, if it's not Anderson, I would have to expect it to be really, really good, or I wouldn't want to watch it. Though I will admit there was a period of time where I did watch everything Mila that I could get my hands on. That might not have been the best way to phrase that. But yeah, I've watched the first 5 films at least twice each, and I own all of them on DVD, although some of them only very recently, and I have watched every DVD extra, but some thus only once each. And I've also watched and owned the Resurrected edition of Apocalypse, which is 90 minutes, where the Resident Evil Collection version is 98. And the way I own the first 4 movies is the Resident Evil Collection, which, I don't know, it seems like they should have just called it the quadrilogy, since, did they not know? I mean, I think that set came out very close to when the fourth movie came out. Like, you know, if you wanted to get the fourth movie on DVD, you could get the Resident Evil collection. But didn't they know that they were making more? I mean, I feel like each movie kind of sort of knows, including this one, that it's going to get at least one sequel. But then at the same time, kind of sort of wants to, you know, isn't sure that it is going to make more, and thus closes off some things that might have been good to keep for upcoming. Yeah. Now, the Resurrected Edition does come with a game for testing memory retention, which is fitting, I guess, or ironic, like rain on a wedding day, considering how difficult it is to perceive all the information coming at you in the film. And I've watched the reviews of these done by Phalos, Deus Deacon, which are all great once you get past the 20 or so seconds of Emo Song intro, which is louder in volume than the rest of it. I'm sorry. Dude, I love your videos. I really... Please do something about that. Anyway. And for some reason, even the Angry Joe and Blockbuster Buster videos, I have watched Mike J's reviews on them, but not anytime recently. And when I record this, I have not yet watched Phalos' two-part review of this film. I try not to let very long time pass between finishing a thing and reviewing it. I was, you know, I did have, like, the rant queued up, but then it only took me the time that, you know, the midnight screenings took to set up the camera and such. So, yeah, I'll be watching it afterwards. But, of course, if the, you know, if the Retribution one was any indication, I think he only did for Retribution in the final chapter, then a lot of what he says in the rant, he will also be saying in the video itself. But, yeah. And, you know, the regular DVD on this doesn't have a commentary track. There's at least one commentary track for each of the 4 films in the Resident Evil collection, and Retribution, I want to say, has like 2 or 3, so, yeah. Now, this movie was delayed, and they purport to give us the truth about Alice, about the Red Queen, about Umbrella's real goal. I guess kind of sort of that's in there, but it's completely, yeah, it contradicts what we've seen up to now. And, you know, it's sort of a return to roots. It's survival horror, claustrophobic, like the first movie. And they went for locations over sets, and the actors are physically there in real places. I didn't note the name, but it might be Mila. In one of the interviews, one of the people working on this, I believe at least it was one of the actors, said Paul's a genius, which you and I have very different definitions of that word. This movie is 1 hour and 42 minutes long, and without credits, it's 98 minutes, which, you know, I will say, unlike Michael Bay, Paul W.S. Anderson does have the decency to keep his movies under 2 hours, and a bunch of the time close to 90 minutes. You know, and there doesn't pass a lot of time with no action. He doesn't let politics take over. His characters never get as obnoxious as Bay's, and, you know, the women are not treated as poorly as in that, but, you know, overall, I do have an easier time understanding why Bay is successful than why Bay is successful than why Anderson is. You know, part of it is the politics. He knows how to appeal to a lot of Americans on a very, you know, on a fairly simple level. I forgot to write down, so I'm just going to say it now so I don't forget to say it also. This movie, I'm not sure has any slow-mo. Instead, it's cut way too fast. Again, it's amazing. Like, he stumbles through this just making these And it again, it has like really stunning visuals some of the time. There's this bit where they're taking like an elevator through the Umbrella facility, and you just see this large area around them, and it's cool. And there are, you know, the siege looks impressive. The Yeah, but yeah, he gets an idea and just runs with it, even if it goes against what he's done before, and even if it's in actuality kind of a bad idea. And on this one, the idea was like handheld, quick cuts, and yeah, just I'll get more into that, but it's yeah. And the frequently asked questions for the yeah the yeah, on IMDb, you know, someone posted the question, how can they go back to the Hive if Raccoon City was destroyed in a nuclear explosion, which is still canon. And he said, you know, the Hive was around 5 miles underground, Raccoon City was destroyed, but the Hive would still be standing. I guess that's fair enough. And then it says, at this point, the Spencer Mansion is still standing in movie continuity as well, meaning they could easily use that side entrance to get to the Hive if they, you know, on the next bit is kind of a spoiler. That is absurd. Obviously, that building would not still be standing. And if they were anywhere in the area other than this very deep underground, the radiation would be fatal after a nuke hit. You know, they say, you know, it's been 10 years. I forget what exactly, like, the you know, yeah, how long has to pass, but I'm almost certain it's more than 10 years after a nuclear blast. You know, a nuclear bomb was kind of designed to specifically kill everything in the, you know, yeah. And yes, it should have killed them in Apocalypse 2, since they're that close in the helicopter when the blast hits. I don't think I read the IMDb the trivia section of the spoilers. One moment. So that actually confirmed a thing or two that I had that I had pretty much guessed, but yeah. And, you know, Apocalypse has these, you know, these and keeps to a very fast pace, and is made up of tons of incredibly short MTV-style edited scenes, making it legitimately straining to watch. You know, our brains are supposed to process that much input in that short a space of time for that long at a time. It's fine for music videos, since they're short and tend to each take place in their own world. I was wondering if that same thing was going to be the case here. Not quite. They do a better job here. Part of the thing with Apocalypse is that it has a million tiny little plot strands that all get together. You have all these different characters. You know, yeah, to briefly, you know, you've got Alice, you've got the both Ashfords, you know, both father and daughter. You've got the I forget what his name is, but the Thomas Kretschmann character. You've got Jill, you've got LJ, you've got Carlos and a few others there. And then there is at least one or two, like, minor, but yeah, I guess that's more or less. That's 6 or 7 different, like, yeah, somewhere around that, different little things that all have to get. And I get it. I get why they, you know, they do. At least some of that is necessary, but some of them should just have been combined. you know, comparatively, this one and some of the others in the series, there aren't that many individual small little plot strands and groups and such. So this one is not quite like the second in that regard. In this, there aren't that many different, you know, when Alice meets the survivors are all together. It's kind of, instead, what it is that Alice, you know, she's coming from outside Raccoon City. She's approaching Raccoon City, and then she gets to Raccoon City. And along the way, there are these little brief stops, and you kind of have the you know, I said before, you know, claustrophobic. It's not all of the movie is, but some of the movie definitely is. You know, the parts that take place in the hive are, some of those are very claustrophobic. Anyway, yeah, you basically have the crap. Where was I? Yeah, Alice is approaching Raccoon City, and she gets there and such, and along the way there are these little brief stops where now she has to fight a zombie, or, you know, she meets someone or something, and those are that kind of, you know, which Paul loves to do, where a scene starts and you're not quite sure what's going on, and you know, there are a couple of things like that, but they don't tend to, like, lead into major. Actually, yeah, a lot of them are like that first scene of extinction. They change nothing pretty much. Like they might take some time off the, you know, Alice is running around with, like, you know, this watch on her wrist that just says exactly how much is left of the 48 hours, and every so, you know, she'll check that fairly often, which is also something I really appreciate. I do find it really annoying in movies where they're like, you know, okay, overall we have so and so long, and then forever of the movie passes without them telling us how you know, how much time is left. And so we're sitting through this major action scene, and it's like, yeah, but how long is left? Are they wasting time? Does the hero slowing down to make a quip, is that completely wasting time, or does he have time to waste? And in this movie, they actually just do. She checks it frequently, but as is pointed out in the Midnight Screenings episode, which, by the way, if you haven't watched the movie yet, the Midnight Screenings spoils a ton, which, you know, they tend to do, which is fine. That's, you know, but yeah, you know, she'll check, and sometimes way more time will have passed, and sometimes way less than. But anyway, yeah, there are these little stops, but there's not like a major, like, major character introduced, and then we cut to somewhere else, and then it, you know, not to the same extent as Apocalypse. Now, yeah, and like, you know, the first 5 movies, although in Afterlife it's only some of it, we don't only follow the protagonist and other survivors. We also see the bad guys' perspective, see them discuss, plan, execute, and yeah, you know, this, in spite of that taking away mystery and those scenes adding little other than villain mustache twirling off by actors who are way too good for the material. And, you know, eventually the good guys encounter the bad guy, but you didn't need to see them, at least not that much before then, and these scenes tend to change nothing or explain things that are all already visually conveyed and such. And I actually have to wonder if maybe Paul does this to emulate video game wave attack mode. Like, they beat that attack, send in the next attack, or something. Yeah. And, you know, to be fair, in the first movie, and some in Apocalypse, some in Afterlife, it's like cameras watching people, voyeurism, and that works okay. You know, it's uncomfortable to be watched by someone, but when they actually just cut to the bad guy saying, "That is my enemy, send in some more people to defeat my enemy," when we see them arrive, we know that we can put together that when some people arrive, and if they were seen by a camera, you know, if they're being watched, which, you know, in these movies they somehow always are, even if there's no camera around. Anyway, yeah, you know, obviously the bad guys might send some people after them. You know, we need to literally see. And yeah, this movie has some of that, but there's also a little bit of like setup that happens there that actually does need to be conveyed, and that yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there's a scene in this that isn't, like I said, some of them are just passing time and, you know, wasting some of the 48 hours she has, but there's really no scene that is just completely, you know, they'll at the very least be somewhat enjoyable to watch. But yeah, you know, they tend to, stuff tends to happen in these scenes that in some way pays off later. I think Anderson has gotten a little better at the setup and payoff thing. I'm not sure there's anything that has absolutely no setup in this that has like a really major, yeah. But again, I've only just gotten done watching it only once, so could be misremembering. Plot analysis. And this is in part so I don't have to do more videos on Afterlife. At the end of Afterlife, Wesker's mouth somehow contains, his mouth does not contain anything, which I really thought was a disappointment. His mouth somehow contains a way bigger Magini or whatever, you know, that could possibly fit in his mouth, and they aren't, you know, the kind that could fit closely together and like open out. You know, it's just, and you know, the bomb on the helicopter at the end has a way smaller explosion than the one at the start, or the Arcadia would also blow up, and it's like, it's such an unnecessary continuity gaffe. Like, just like say that it's not only the one explosive, say that the facility is lined with explosives and the one bomb would only blow up a small vehicle, as is the case in the film. But yeah, and you know, as usual, we've got, you know, over the top kind of stuff, although in this, not in awkward comic relief. There's not really any comic relief character in this. And, you know, on Afterlife, you know, like I said, I just rewatched all these reviews of Afterlife, and yeah, they point out, you know, way too much slow motion. And that's absolutely 100% true. The thing is, and I forget exactly where, you know, on the DVD of it, I forget if it's a special feature or a commentary or what it is. It was because Anderson got these special cameras that shoot amazing slow motion, and they're like, he said they're like usually used like by NASA and such, and like no movie before Afterlife had been filmed on these. So that's why there's so much slow motion in Afterlife. And yeah, it's this thing, he you know, Afterlife and Retribution, Afterlife especially, is full of slow motion, and there's a lot of slow motion in Retribution as well, and that's Anderson, kill your darlings. Don't use it that much. You're just, and that's the thing, the man does not appear to have like very much impulse control. Like, he gets an idea and he just runs with it. And like I imagine, like, when you know, when someone tells him just apply some, you know, some self-control, and he responds like Homer would, you know, don't let the pushy little weenie tell you what to do. And you know, Wesker survives, you know, several explosions and the like in Afterlife. I'm not going to give away if that carries over to this. Not in this part of the video. And, you know, yeah, in Anderson's films, there are very few limits on what can happen or have happened right before or after any one shot of the film. And that's kind of there's this film school teacher that I really admire who once said that basically between any between any cut in film, any amount of time can have passed, that you are allowed to do that. And that's, yeah. But in Anderson's films, it's like, yeah, pretty much anything can have happened. There's this, in Afterlife, you've got a group of people who've been living inside a prison for years while surrounded by hundreds of zombies, without the zombies getting in, and without the group of people even doing basic exploration of the prison. And again, this is something, I want to say it's D.S. Deacon who points this out, and it's like, yeah, I don't think Anderson really stops to think, did this happen before we cut to it? Because if he did, he would be like, wait, the zombies standing there, like, there's no way that they could possibly be standing there for years and not eventually get in, but yeah. And I thought of you could fix this so easily. Why not just have lasers preventing the zombies from getting in and preventing basic exploration of the prison? You've got lasers preventing zombies from getting on, like right behind the walls of the prison, and the zombies just barely understand, like, actually, yeah, the walls of the prison are already broken, but there are lasers, and, they cut anyone touching, and, like, and again, this could so easily be shown, like, Alice could look down and be like, how have the zombies not gotten in yet? And then, like, somebody hands her, like, binoculars or something, take a closer look. And, like, the zombies are standing, like, and they have just a little bit of respect. They're standing close to like, the lasers, and maybe, like, one tries, or one, like, trips or something, and Anderson gets to do one of these things he loves, with a little slow motion cut of, like, a piece of someone's body being cut off. Especially by lasers. He especially loves using lasers for that. And just, and the moment that happens, like, the other zombies, like, back a little bit, and and then there are lasers preventing exploration, preventing them from getting to the place with the jeep, and the place with all, the armory. And when Alice arrives, she recognizes, throughout these movies, she, like, looks at, does something, or looks at something, and suddenly understands something, is able to do something because of what Umbrella has done to her. So, she recognizes a complex generator, which Umbrella makes, and she disables it, knowing that the lasers preventing exploration would be the only ones to go off. You can even have one of the characters be like, no, you let in the zombies, and then it turns off, and then it cuts, and the lasers outside are still going. And, she points to another generator and tells us that one runs the lasers, keeping the zombies out. When the Axeman arrives at the front gate, bashes his hammer, let's say he bashes his hammer against the ground. How does he know? How does he arrive? What is his background at all? And the first vibration just, like, affects it a little bit. And Alice realizes, and she's like, we don't have a lot of time, That is a way better one-liner than it is in these movies. Anyway, and he keeps bashing the ground and gradually doing more damage, and eventually it gets busted, and then we have the same scene that they do have in the movie when he bashes down the gate as it is. And the Axeman in the film, he just walks down the street and later arrives at the prison. What was he doing before? Has he been walking towards the prison for years? Tons of zombies around it. It would make sense if he found it fairly quickly. Has he just been wandering aimlessly for however long he's been around and then suddenly decided, I feel like going to prison now? And again, all you had to do, Actually, yeah, that would be a pretty good time for a, you know, cut to like a villain. You don't have to give away that it's Wesker. Just, you know, cut to like a display, like a screen. Yeah, don't they already have one where like a shot where she's recognized by satellite, or am I thinking of Extinction? Anyway, yeah, just have something like that and just say release Axeman or something like that, and there you have it. But instead, it's just, and Wesker doesn't even refer to it. He could just have said, you avoided the Axeman. You know, I'm almost certain he doesn't refer to it. And it would, again, and there Anderson doesn't do enough to tie things up and to tie the villains to what's happening. And you know, and they go into the Arcadia, and there's this huge white, completely white room, and suddenly there's this huge pool of fresh blood, without any of the characters having seen anything that would cause it while they were there, and somehow supposedly not noticing it immediately when entering, despite it being the only non-white thing in the whole room. You know, and again, before you like defend and say no, there was only blood on the, you know, the thing that, you know, the box that came up that had a person in. No, there's also blood. There's a trail of blood on the floor leading in to the room that Wesker's sitting in. You know, yeah. And you know, and people, you know, as Deacon also points out, people keep entering the room that Wesker's in without, you know, without anyone noticing, seemingly without the door opening, or at least no one draws attention to that. And yeah. And, you know, in Afterlife and Retribution, the zombies can apparently swim with no problem, including in, like, intensely cold water in Retribution. But, yeah, I'm not sure there's anything quite like that in this one. And, you know, in Retribution in the suburbs, Ada briefly uses her grappling gun in the house shootout. It shows she has it and how it works, but her pistol would be far more effective. And Mila does not ride an Uber-Licker like a horsey. She said on her Retribution commentary that if they made another movie, she had to. So, yeah. And on the commentary track, and this, when I first heard it, when I first heard the Retribution commentary track, which was a few years ago, back when I did the review of that, back then I was on the other side. I was on, like, I can't believe how terrible these movies are. I wasn't enjoying it as I should be. And back then I was just completely taken aback by it. And this time I was like, yep, that's how they look at it. They make fun of how easily Alice could have ripped the chest spider off at the start of the fight with Jill, and how often Wesker injects Alice with stuff. You know, and just, yeah, they don't like say, we could have done that better. They're just, yeah, that's stupid. Just, yeah, and Boris Kojo, if that's how I pronounce it, plays Luthor, also points out how frequently Mila whips her head back, whipping her hair and looking shocked. And she agrees it's her trademark. And I'm pretty sure she says as an actress. I don't think she means in the series, because she does that. And also in Retribution, did Clone Rain have the Las Plagas parasite injection the whole movie? If she had used it in the concrete bunker, the clones would have won the shootout, given that it makes her impervious to, you know, again, and again, that's a scene you could have, like one of the clones make it Clonin Sound as the abridged script. That's perfect. You know, that's they give him that nickname. Have him use the Las Plagas and like start to walk towards them, you know, taking all these bullets, and then like the let's see, and maybe have you know, you already have Barry sacrifice himself to kill him. Maybe have him like play possum, and Clonin goes all the way up them, and like he sticks a grenade down his pocket or something, which is something Anderson clearly loves in these movies. You know, he's watched, I guess I shouldn't say which movie, because that would give away something amazing in that movie, but yeah, there's a certain really great movie he's watched way too many, well, okay, you can't watch that movie way too many times, but he's a little too in love with that idea. But yeah, you know, have him like and say, heal this sucker or something, you know, and blows up, and then not long after they have the huge explosion that completely ends. But and then at the end, you know, Rain uses it and says, I don't think you have any more explosives, or something, you know. And it's also, it really is absolutely ridiculous that somehow, in spite of the flooding, we saw them right there, somehow they got to a submarine, climbed in safely, and somehow this submarine moves as fast as this, what's it called, snow crawler or whatever, you know, snowmobile, something like that, you know. It's, I mean, the fact that they can scan to it, Umbrella has ridiculous computer abilities, so that I can live with. But yeah, you know, again, if the let's see, yeah, you know, if they only had one Las Plagas, they could have used in the concrete bunker shoot-off. Of course, that might have meant she couldn't have got her pout off with Alice, and why should only Jill get one? And again, this could have been so easily fixed. Before she injects, have her say, look what I found in the submarine. That's it. That's all that you, yeah. And why do they bring out the hostage so late in the bunker shootout? Again, just have her only just arrive there or something. Instead, they wait for minutes of just shooting back and forth. And you know, other reviewers have pointed out how stupid it is that Alice survives the final fight in Retribution with the Mortal Kombat visuals show her die. At that point, she's no longer infected with the T-virus. She's just, yeah. Or wait, no, yeah, that was the original Alice who didn't have her abilities anymore as of the start of Afterlife, yeah. And apparently the non-evil Michelle Rodriguez driving a Prius, that was based on her in real life driving a Prius in spite of being such a badass. And Paul Anderson, because he has the mind of a child, went like, well, in that case, let's make a non-badass version of her, instead of just pointing out that you can drive a Prius and still be a badass. Evidently, you know, that's, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of, like, you know, like interviews or such with Michelle Rodriguez, but what I have seen, she is badass in real life. You know, she's not Rain badass, obviously, but she is, yeah, she's very cool. And you know, in Apocalypse at the end, there's a psychic link between Alice and Angie. In Extinction, Alice is psychically affected whenever one of her clones die. But then in Afterlife and Retribution, there's no sign of that. She doesn't mind all her clones dying at the start of Afterlife. You know, right after that, she's like, oh, I can't believe there are so many humans left alive. You just got dozens of clones killed by not being careful enough to, yeah. But yeah, you know, and there's no sign that she was affected for however long the Retribution cloning part of the testing facility has been running, which we know it did since before society collapsed, which it hadn't at the end of Apocalypse. And at the end of Apocalypse is when she gets the psychic, just, yeah, like, in that case, it's Paul forgetting what was in the previous movies. It's not just person B not reading what person A wrote in the script. You know, despite the violent fight scenes, in conclusion, there's no contusion, just the illusion and delusion. Kellyanne never stop setting new standards for stupidity, and I realize I delivered this very differently from how she said it. That's intentional. I worried if I tried to mimic it, my brain would come dripping out my nose. Characters. We yet again have Alice Miliovich as Alice, former Umbrella security officer turned rogue fighter. And yeah, this is just kind of backstory. I copy them in from Wikipedia just to make sure I get everything said. And yeah, this is just retelling about how she got superhuman abilities, and then it says she also swears vengeance for the death of her allies and plans on ending Umbrella's treachery for the remaining humanity's last stand for survival. And that's, that's this movie. And that's a spoiler. If you're gonna watch this and you don't want spoilers, do not look at the main cast list in on the IMDb page. Huge spoiler there. Do not read the Wikipedia, obviously not the plot, because that gives away the whole movie, but also not the character stuff. I was very careful. It says when characters die, and I was like, oh, okay, let me just mark that one sentence and move that into the spoiler, which I haven't read. There's a lot of spoiler stuff that I haven't read yet, or a lot. There's a little spoiler stuff that I haven't read before starting the camera. And I also took spoiler notes, which I'll get to when I get to the spoiler part. And let's see. And yeah, Claire is back. If she mentions Chris, I missed that line. Again, Chris was in the 4th movie, and then Alice was like in Retribution she talks to Jill, somehow not realizing that Jill is under mind control. Jill is like talking in this very stilted way, and it's like, and Alice is just like, Jill, what's going on? Instead of, they've got you under mind control. Sometimes the characters are just incredibly stupid. But yeah, she says, what happened to Claire and Chris? And that's the one time in that whole movie. And now she meets back up with Claire. I'm also not entirely certain they actually explain how she got away, considering that the last time we saw her, she was on Arcadia, and it was being attacked by, I think Paul Anderson in the commentary track called them V-12s, all the planes with how could they possibly have gotten away? Anyway. And yeah, Albert Wesker. An Umbrella employee who is loyal to Dr. Isaacs. And the mastermind of his plot, which has betrayed Alice once again after the events of the previous film. And yeah, I'll get more into that, but just, yeah. And Ruby Rose as Abigail, and like she's like really great with like mechanics or something like that. And in the trailers for the new XXX movie, it seemed like she got to be way cooler in that than she does in this. She's okay in this. She's got the typical Paul W. Anderson, badass girl vibe a little bit, but she doesn't do that much that's really badass. And let's see. Yeah, there's this, one of the survivors is called Christian, the leading survivor who led the assault on Umbrella and is also at odds with Alice. I hated his guts. And yeah, Ian Glenn returns as Dr. Alexander Isaacs, CEO of the Umbrella Corporation, as of this movie, even though the previously he was clearly subordinate to to Wesker. And yeah, anyway, they just, without even explaining why, they literally completely reversed their relationship. And it's as of the start of this movie, as of in the exposition dump at the very start, there Wesker is clearly working for Isaacs, not the other way around. Now, but yeah, let's see. Yeah, and he leads the company. He's plotting to destroy humanity. And I'm probably gonna butcher this, but Yoongi, yeah, as Commander Chu, Umbrella's security chief and second in command. I didn't realize from watching it that he was a second in command, but dude is really badass in this. He has a hand-to-hand fight, and it's solid. It's really good. And there is the, yeah, and yet again recast the Red Queen. And let's see, yeah, she gives a really good performance. I have to admit, I really liked her in this. I don't know if she's going to be in more movies after this. Try not to think about why, and definitely don't look up who she is, but I mean, I'm not saying I would necessarily seek out movies. If let's say if she happened to show up in a movie in the future that I was gonna watch anyway, I would be like, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing her in that, because I have to admit, I mean, it's not easy being Red Queen, and you know, as Deacon points out, in Retribution, she's just this super angry little girl, and that's not that scary. You know, little girls are scary when they're doing stuff that children shouldn't be doing, or when they're really calm in spite of something crazy going on, or they seem like completely obsessed with something, or when they're just talking normally but saying something really messed up, like, you're all going to die down here. You know, she's not like, you're all going to die down here. You know, she's just, you know, I mean, she says it in basically the same voice as she would say, I would like a glass of milk, mother, or something, you know, just, and she's just been saying, please do not go in there. I implore you. You're all going to die down here. She just, there's no, like, yeah. And yes, she does. She says it again in this movie, and it's so amazingly stupid. They even have to have her, like, the line right before it is super stilted just to make sure she can say that line. And it's sort of mostly making sense, but just, yeah. How will Alice wake? Not naked, actually. I had expected, but yeah, it's at this point, it seems like Paul has accepted that maybe Alice would not always wake up either literally completely naked or naked other than being, you know, having like the surgical, you know, this tiny thing covering you know, that she had in Apocalypse, and then again in Retribution, you know. In fact, when she wakes up in this, she's in clothes. She's not just in lingerie like she was in, or yeah, more or less lingerie in Retribution in the Fake Out. And yeah, almost none of the cast returns. And I hear that it's not Paul's call, though he did let Jeremy bolt the door on them. And we keep getting one film with characters that we want to see from the games, and then they're just gone the next, even when it makes no sense. You know, the Redfields are in the climax of Afterlife, but not in Retribution when they directly connect. And as already mentioned, Alice only brings them up the one time. And Alice is yet again using the sawn-off shotgun, like in Afterlife in the very opening of Retribution. And none of the new characters are even the tiniest bit memorable. They're barely defined. What little there is forgettable, obnoxious, and the like. And characters more or less die once they've done what they were there for. Did Robert Rodriguez co-write this? And that's, again, you know, the forgettable or obnoxious and the like, that's typical Anderson character writing, yeah. And you know, they in like interviews they're like, oh, this new female character is a badass. What's new about that? Paul has been writing most of his female characters as badasses for years now. Don't get me wrong, though I am with Natalie Portman on the subject, I'm glad that he's giving women roles that, you know, roles and role models, but why make it why make it a point in interview that the character is like that? At least Mila said, oh, she's made the character her own. That you can't necessarily say about each of these characters. And I already mentioned killing zombies with a sword. And we yet again have a small girl. You know, Afterlife is the only one not to have a small girl. There it's a teenage girl. But, you know, the first one, in the first one in Retribution and in this, the girl is the Red Queen AI. In, let's see, in Extinction, it's the White Queen, sorry. And then it's a human in Apocalypse and in... That can't be right. I must have miswritten that. And... yeah. Oh, wait, yeah. There's also a human in Retribution, in addition to the Red Queen. Oh, and... no, she does not show up in this. She's not even referenced. Yeah. And again, I mean, you could have just, you don't even have to make her a part of the movie. Just say, I put her where it's safe. She survived the end of Retribution. So there's, you know, yeah. And Anderson's characters are often specialists, and yet they make mistakes that, you know, people like you or I, that, you know, types like that would never do. I mean, these are things that you or I might do on a dare if the logical part of our brain had been removed while on a week-long bender, but not specialists. And sometimes they do this to surprise or to make something contrived happen. And Anderson's characters will be introduced doing something obnoxious, stupid, or the like, and then we're expected to like them afterwards. And Alice is the only competent one, everyone else is her cheerleader. That I will say, in this, there are a few things. I mean, she's the one who goes and gives them the idea. But there are things in this where, okay, that's something that our other character did that she couldn't have done. Actually, yeah, I guess there's a little bit of that, but yeah, on the whole, still her cheerleader in some of the other movies. And the badass women are sometimes these angry, bitter, obnoxious types, which is really frustrating. You know, you shouldn't make them still have, you know, a sense of humor and be human. It's, you know, it's as if they think that that's the only way a female character can be a badass. And yeah, you know, you've got boring characters that you never care about and don't feel anything when they predictably die. In my videos on Retribution, I say that the clones bring up ethical issues that the films... yeah, that clones bring up ethical issues that the film itself doesn't bring up. What I should have said is that the ethical issues aren't treated consistently. Alice in the film is bothered by clones being taken advantage of. You can see from the look on her face. But she and the movie don't seem to mind shooting the evil clones or mind control Jill. They didn't choose to be evil. And really I mean, I guess you could sort of say with Jill, she might be trying to shoot the mind control spider on her chest. We can't necessarily see, although if that's the case, you could have made that a lot clearer, and again, she could have grabbed it at the start of the fight. It really seems like. And, you know, and only Rain gets characterization. I'm not certain that Clone Salmon gets a single line in Retribution, and yeah, just, you know, and Evil Clone Carlos doesn't get much either, but, you know, I agree that, I forget if it was Deus Deacon or Phaelus pointing it out, but I think it might have been Deus Deacon, that, you know, Rain used to be this, you know, kind of tragic character, and now she's just pure evil in the clone version. I agree with that, and that's too bad, but again, she does at least get a little bit of characterization, and she gets to be an evil badass, kind of, there's that thing, we have a kid here, your problem, not ours. Yeah, it's completely against the Rain character, and would be more interesting if there was still some of the humanity. And Alice also says, ah, I see you're still, just you still care deeply. She kind of did, though. In the first movie, she clearly cared when, what was his name, something CJ maybe, when he dies, and she's, no, there's still, but anyway, yeah, at least she does get a little bit of personality there, and she gets to be badass in the, in that final fight there. Again, I really appreciate that Paul brought her back. And yeah, these things mean together mean that the others might as well be characters we hadn't met before, or even helmeted troops. They don't even have compelling deaths. And yeah, given that they didn't choose to be evil, why don't the good guys shoot for the legs and arms to disable, not kill them? And when characters die, Alice and others still alive don't express emotion, and although sometimes true in this, and sometimes that's just like they don't. Yeah, in this sometimes they do care, and yeah. And somehow Alice and others still look great. I guess in the zombie wasteland you can get custom clothing, makeup, take showers. And yeah, one thing I will say in favor of Retribution, it's always nice to see Michelle Rodriguez, especially when she gets to kick ass in action scenes. I can accept clone BS if that's what it gets us. And yeah, and Retribution's human child character, Becky, did not make it into this, and she would be the first little girl character to be in 2 movies in a row in this series, other than the Red Queen. The Red Queen, well, yeah, I already went into that. Trailer reflections. The hanging zombies at the raccoon border look hilarious, wobbling slightly, and you see these shots of like thousands of zombies, and in the trailer it really looked like they were just CGI. They all look cheap and fake, and then there are some closer shots where it must be real people. Some of the CGI is better, less fake looking in the film, but some of it is really bad. And the subtitle breaks the format. It again means nothing, and all it tells us is that, mercifully, it's the end. But then again, horror franchises with final in the subtitle usually means there's still more. And each subtitle made it sound like it was the last one. And yes, yet again, a sequel-baity ending. Like all Anderson's endings are. And yeah, so as Wesker, the head of Umbrella, always the bad guy, who's in Extinction, Afterlife, Retribution, and now the final chapter, is not the main bad guy. No, the doctor who was in charge of some stuff in Extinction is. He's in Apocalypse, Extinction, and now the final chapter. And Apocalypse, he's only there for, a few minutes, and he didn't seem to be in charge of all that much, or unless he has a really hands-on approach to, he's directly dealing with Alice when, I guess it's possible that he just came there to check on her, but it's still, he doesn't feel in that like he's the boss. And yeah, he's literally been gone for 2 whole movies, Afterlife and Retribution. And to be fair, he was hinted at in the ending of the first movie, and that in that he was, the voice over there was done by, I want to say Oscar Isaacs, who is, he's in or was it another Isaacs? If you want to be sure, you're gonna have to look it up. I can't do, YouTube no longer lets me do the annotations, so, and I didn't write it down. But he, that guy was supposed to play the role in the second movie, but then he declined. And the trivia for the or the DVDX or something said that, oh, he and Paul Anderson are close friends. Yeah, I think he said in commentary, close friends. He's been in every one of my movies. He actually kind of hasn't since that, so it's possible that they had a falling out or something. But yeah, knowing the actor from a few other things, I could see him having that role. Although I do really like Ian Glenn in the role. But yeah, the character in Apocalypse was clearly there at the end of the first movie as well. And, Wesker hasn't died even once, which, Isaacs did in Extinction. And, and Wesker is also one of the bad guys in this. He went against Umbrella in Afterlife, unless that was just a lie, but it didn't really seem like. He seemed to genuinely want to eat Alice, which is not at all what Umbrella wanted to happen to her. And he was most definitely against Umbrella in Retribution, and he apparently got rehired, and this movie plays it as though, like, oh, in Retribution, he was like a spy for Isaacs. He let them break in and destroy this facility as just, and again, if the movie just made something up and just explained it away, that would at least be something. But it just acts like that movie didn't, like he wasn't, like he didn't help Alice in that movie. Umbrella had Alice trapped in one of her facilities. She only gets out because Wesker took over the computers briefly. If you wanted to make it seem like he was working with them, why not make sure that she can't, properly leave? Pretend that you're helping her, but then, like, have something planted in her suit that makes it possible for you to stop her, or something. When they let her go in Apocalypse, it's because they have some level of control over her. And we couldn't possibly go a whole movie without the lasers. I'm aware Apocalypse had none, but that's 1 out of 6 movies. And there's this scene of, like, infection spreading in a ski lifty box thing. And, they all die or turn within it traveling once. Looked like a cool scene. I don't recognize it from another movie, although it might be. And it's a pretty cool scene in the movie as well. It's very short. And, we see the crater after the new king of Raccoon City. And I legitimately, when I watched the trailer, I was like, Raccoon City is still in canon? We haven't seen it since Apocalypse. It hasn't even been referenced. And yet another Red Queen, because there's apparently no defeating her permanently. And, in the trailers, I didn't think she seemed creepy. She isn't especially creepy, but I did like her. She's not really meant to be creepy in this one, I don't think. She's just, it's somewhat like the White Queen. Just it's a little off-putting because, like, okay, this is clearly an AI, but it looks just like a real person, but no, she just, it's like if a little girl was, they talk to her as though she is a computer, not a little girl, and it's a computer that talks like an adult. It just happens to physically look like a little girl, and that, yeah. But yeah, the Retribution one tried really hard to be creepy and wasn't. And yeah, the one in the first movie was very naturally. And one of the trailers has this really ridiculous rock song. I'm not sure that was in the final movie. If it was, I didn't notice. And more cool Umbrella Corporation logo design in the middle of the huge door that's closing on them. And that's actually a pretty decent scene. That's, yeah, a lot of the action in this is really cool. Paul, stop almost or fully crushing people in closing doors or the like, some of them large doors. You've got that in the first movie, in Apocalypse, Alien vs. Predator, Retribution, and now the final chapter. And yeah, I already mentioned the huge truck-sized Deathmobiles, not unlike the one we didn't get to see driven at all in Afterlife. And as I had suspected, in this one they just appear. There's no build-up. So, the reverse of the Afterlife one, and the other of Paul's two major approaches to setup and payoff. And Mila said in, like, interview, we've come full circle. Alice gets a chance to find out who she is. About time. That hasn't even been hinted at. It was an issue in the first one, Apocalypse and Extinction, and not since. And goes into how she got involved with Umbrella, how this whole thing came to be. And Mila also says she's one of the most amazing characters in my life. Really? And we've grown together. Alice has grown? I mean, I guess you could say that in the first, she's not completely coldly badass all the time, but then that's kind of what she is in the rest of them, so, including this one. And, in the trailer you see the upside-down fight sequence, very Cirque du Soleil, but it is actually a pretty cool fight. And each of the films has a different look. And, this, in the trailers, looked very epic in scope, and I feel like they did do a pretty good job. It does feel like there really are thousands of zombies in this one, and, she says, we're gonna kill every last one of them, and I'm not sure they quite managed that, but they do kill a lot of them, and it's cool. But it does not live up to the epic ending of Retribution. Retribution didn't live up to Afterlife didn't live up to Extinctions, and it doesn't even try. This, you could argue that the following is a spoiler, but I do really want, if anyone is like considering watching this, but like, if it's like gonna put you off completely, if you really badly wants to know what what happened after the pullback at the end of Retribution, you don't get to see that at all in this movie. And in the Midnight Screenings video, they point out, it feels like there should have been a movie between, every time you see a movie in this series, it feels like there should have been another movie between it and the one before it, because stuff happened. And yeah, I really feel like they could at least have given us a terrible one like Retribution did. At least the one at the start of Afterlife, after Extinction, it's a cool action scene, but I suppose you could argue that the Retribution opening is fairly cool. It's just tiny in scope after what we saw, but in this one it doesn't even bother. She basically just wakes up and I think she is in Washington still, and just, yeah, everything seems abandoned. It doesn't start out with a ton of zombies around, so just you have no idea what happened there. And I don't think she even mentions the characters that were there. Let's see, Ada survived, and so did, I don't even remember if Luther made it. Yeah, he was in 2 movies, and he survived the first one. I don't remember if he survived the second one. And I just watched that movie just a few days ago to remind, man, yeah, that's Paul W. Anderson characters in a nutshell. Anyway, you have the Leon. Leon and Ada for sure survived the ending of Retribution, but yeah, not even referenced here. Unless I missed it, and the movie does move fast some of the time. And yeah, the antivirus is airborne. Excuse me. And yeah, very effective. And Alice says in the trailer, I have to get into the hive, because we couldn't go another movie without Alice working her way into somewhere. It's the first movie, Afterlife, Retribution. Apocalypse was just them getting out of somewhere, and Extinction about them getting from point A to point B. In a series of 6 films, we haven't had a single movie with a different goal. And this movie is essentially just the reverse of the latter half of the first movie, and and Retribution, where she starts inside and is working her way out. And each time Alice is determined to keep everyone alive, and each time barely any at all survive. And yet we don't see her really, bothered by it. And it took 4 years passed between Retribution and this, and that's the longest so far. There were 2 years between the first two, then 3 years before Extinction, 3 years before Afterlife, 2 years between Afterlife and Retribution. Basically, Mila got pregnant, and it delayed the schedule. Mr. Anderson, welcome back. We didn't miss you. Well, that's what I wrote. I kind of missed him. I didn't realize that I did, but yeah. And, I was wondering if there were going to be any of those scans for living humans, rooms, hallways, or the like, and if so, there were going to be too many, used badly, or the like. They managed to squeeze just one in, and it's that Alice has this, tiny hologram on, maybe the same wristwatch, or and she looks at it, once. And it does not overuse slow-mo like Afterlife. And there's a new creature. I don't know if it's from one of the games, but, the first 5 each have at least one new creature, and in all of those, it's from one of the games, or a bigger version of one of the ones we'd already seen. And, several times it'll be like a boss enemy, and I could imagine that the one in this was. And and in the first 2 movies, it feels like a credible threat, and Alice flees, at least some of the time. After those 2, she basically sleepwalks past them. In this, it's a fight. Proper fight, again. But yeah, in general, she becomes boringly overpowered after that point, and she wasn't that far away from that before it, either. In Apocalypse, she can fight Nemesis head-on with martial arts. In Afterlife and Retribution, she does have to use other means because they simply have far more muscle mass, but so did Nemesis. And here, it's basically she has to use other means. She doesn't just use martial arts. Yeah. So again, greatly appreciate it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will watch Mila Jovovich kick ass, and just, no matter how many keep coming, just any time, and in however many movies. But you cannot expect me to believe that that she would be able to defeat Nemesis the way it is shown in Apocalypse. It's just ridiculous. And I forget if it's Deacon or Phaelus who points it out, but yeah, nobody wanted to see Nemesis fist fight. That's, yeah. And in Afterlife, but not too much like the rest. Not too much the rest. Well, also the first movie. I don't know why I didn't write that in the notes. The action is well paced and spaced out. Well, no, yeah, actually, Afterlife is really the only of them for that. Here, it's almost one action scene after another. So yeah, no, it's still. And someone said that, the action was all chase scenes. Not quite all, but there's some element of a chase scene in a lot of the action scenes. And yeah, that's new for the series. And, in my Retribution review, I talk about how there are directors who would have been able to do a scene like the you know, the pullback at the end of Afterlife, the opening of Retribution, handle a lot going on, you know, where you could still keep up with going on. When I recorded that, I was thinking mainly of James Cameron, but yeah, I didn't actually say his name there. I should have. And now, yeah, James Cameron. I'd say Christopher Nolan and Joss Whedon would also be able to, although with them it would be with Retribution, you know, given that you only have the one really powerful character on the good guy side, and they're stuck on this one in this one place, and the, you know, it wouldn't quite be the you know, there's no, you know, she doesn't have a vehicle like in a James Cameron movie. She's not, you know, she doesn't have the, you know, the yeah, one of the Batmobile, Batpod, or I forget what the jet one is called. And, you know, it's not like Avengers were also a number of different, yeah. And, you know, I noticed when rewatching, you know, in the first movie, in Apocalypse and Extinction, someone gets up from having their hands cuffed or the like together behind their back to get free. And it's like, he really loved that idea to in some way put that in. And this one doesn't really, well, no, it has something it has something similar. And I'm going to go ahead and quote from a, let's see, I forget exactly what, I want to say this is a Rotten Tomatoes user review. Or, yeah, Metacritic. It's probably a Metacritic user review. This guy gave it a 2 out of 10. Aesthetically unpleasant, obnoxiously loud, and nauseatingly edited, Resident Evil: The Final Chapter has everything you'd need to finish off that how not to make an action movie checklist. And yeah, that's absolutely true. And that, again, yeah, you have every reason not to watch this movie. But then if you can kind of get into it, yeah, it's fun. Notes from DVD extras. And this is going to be quite short because, to be fair, if they had been long, I wouldn't have been able to watch them between, you know, yeah, like I already said. But there's one that's 6 minutes and one that's 4 minutes. And yeah, you know, I want to say it's Mila Jovovich who said, I really got, this is something I have note to myself when I rewatch this to make sure time codes match up and such. Start sourcing quotes from interviews and such. Man. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Mila Jovovich saying, this is the, you know, the longest running female-led action franchise up to this point. True. Although Underworld is only 1 year younger. I feel like, you know, this maybe like she's not supposed to talk about other rivals, but then maybe don't make a statement quite like that, because it really is. I haven't watched, let's see, I watched the first 3 Underworld movies. I might watch the others. I don't hate. I thought that the first one is okay. It's just, it gets boring at points. The second one has a lot of fun action. It's nonsense, but it has a lot of fun action. And the third one I enjoyed fine. I think one of the things with that, I want to say it's DSD who points this out in his review. So much of the events we see, it's a prequel, so much of the events that we see in that one is completely, you know, completely contradicts what we saw in the flashbacks in the first one. And that's, yeah, it's just kind of, you knew the audience would have seen that one already. So anyway, yeah. And I want to say it's Paul Anderson himself who says in an interview on TV Extra, right from the start, Mila was at the heart of this franchise. Yup, at least he's admitting that. So that's, yeah. Accidents on set, I suppose I should. Apparently, this was a careless enough production that a stunt person died. That's messed up, and they didn't even comment on it. They haven't given condolences, and another stunt person lost her arm. This is unacceptable today on a major motion picture set on a Western production. No, not even when it's a non-Western country. And, you know, in the, again, watching the DVD extras, on the first movie, the decapitating elevator used a breakaway floor as a failsafe if the rig, which it shouldn't even be able to do, did go past where the head lined up against it. This would minimize any injuries she did take. And big vehicle stunts were done on films like Fury Road and Civil War. No one died from that. Now, I'm going to try a new thing. Changing between documents where I have notes. If this goes well, I will do it again. I think I'm gonna go ahead and, yeah, I think I'm gonna skip the review stuff and go directly. That, let's see, no, it must be that one. Yes, it was. Which brings us to the, oh, actually, yeah, the short. Right. Which still means I need to note the time. Short review. Resident Evil, the final chapter. This retcons a lot of what happened in the first 5 movies and then goes on to show us clips from the first 5 movies. Basically, the Ashford family has been replaced, and they do actually do good stuff with it, but it's completely clear Anderson had no idea how to, you know, in every movie in the series, he makes up new stuff as he goes along, but this one, if you just accept that it retcons away all this stuff, it actually does tell a compelling, by Paul W. Anderson standards, story with, excuse me, characters that, excuse me, you can, yeah, a few characters that you can get into, and then a ton of, like, disposable ones that are there to die. In a lot of ways, this is the worst of the series, and in a lot of ways, it's the best of the series. If you can accept that it's, you know, if you can get past the fact that it's completely stupid, it's actually a lot of fun. They have really cool action setups, and the, yeah, I got into it, and the, yeah, it's, you know, I've now watched every single movie in the series. You know, this is the only one I've only watched once, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it again. You know, I don't know exactly when, but it's, anyway. Let's see, what else is there to say about it? One of the really big things is that where before he got, you know, Paul got ideas like a lot of slow-mo in the movie, this one, he got the idea to do handheld, yeah, like most of the movie is shot on handheld most of the time by Anderson himself, and it's edited with these really quick cuts where it's like a few, yeah, just, you know, like 2 seconds for a cut and such. And this is especially in the action scenes. To be clear, it's not too bad when there isn't action, but yeah, when there is action, which is really when you want to be able to take everything in, it's difficult to follow a lot of the time, and the movie is going to give some people a headache, and that's not their fault, that's the movie's fault. There's no good reason for it to be filmed or edited like this, and yeah, again, it just... Paul Anderson's always making these mistakes when making movies, but if that isn't going to bother you too much, and you're into the kind of film he makes, yeah, this one is one of the most entertaining he's ever made. And he actually remembers how to tell a story, which is something he kind of abandoned several movies ago. You know, there's story in the first 2 movies, and then, yeah, the next 3, it's kind of just Alice getting from one place to another place, and a bunch of survivors she tries to keep alive, but they die. And just, yeah, it's, yeah, I suppose that pretty well covers that. Thoughts? Please note that this video has spoilers for the subject. Please note that this video contains spoilers for the subject and the series and/or franchise leading up to this entry. Yep, I accidentally played the wrong title card. Notes taken while watching. The opening clips after the exposition dump, once it's showing clips of the movies, gets so ridiculous since the series has gone so ridiculous. And it's kind of, you'd almost expect them to maybe try to cover that, because the first 2 movies aren't that out there, that they're not that ridiculous. But then, yeah, it's especially around the 4th movie that they, yeah, my name is Alice, this is my story, the end of my story. And then at the end of the movie, she still, you know, I hope you forgot that I said that at the start of the movie, because this is kind of, although, you know, in the midnight screenings they point out, this kind of is the end of her story. You know, we get, yeah, her story is basically over, you could say, but yeah. Now, let's see. And yeah, you know, still in Washington, I think, and you've got all the dust and ruins. And actually, it kind of reminded me of like the Terminator Future opening, just with no robots. And, you know, Alice stumbles around super tired. She must have just watched this movie. And, you know, she goes over to drink some water. The zombie jumps out of the water. And nothing happens because the chain. And, you know, she goes into that place and the rubble moving and the flying thing from under it. And that's, you know, they point out in the midnight screens, was that thing just lying there just waiting for, yeah. And, you know, Alice, you know, backs him in the Jeep, it flies into another Jeep, she drives away from it, and Claymore mine in the back of the Jeep. She can't quite reach it, it grabs the roof, you know, lifts the Jeep, rips the roof off, and then, you know, gets its lower arm stuck under something, and she U-turns, pauses like an idiot, runs and smashes into it, hitting up against the other car, and it's so convenient. All that thing would have to do to make her fail is fly higher. And again, this is, you know, we're talking Paul Anderson specifically said at the end, on the commentary, Retribution, there at the ending, see, humanity no longer has air superiority. If this is all the flying things we're going to do, I think we're going to be fine. And, you know, yeah, hits it up against the car, but it's not dead yet. She activates the mine, puts in the Jeep, runs away, gets away before it blows up somehow. And, you know, you hear the air raid siren because that's a really haunting, you know, sound, but it doesn't especially make sense. She's recognized by a camera and goes into that plane, you know, hello, is there anyone alive in there? And, you know, military equipment, she grabs a knife, looks as fake and dumb as the Retribution one, and then a fax machine comes on. Remember fax machines? Hello, Alice. You know, it's a little creepy, I'll admit. That's like the one time the Red Queen is creepy. Want me to say that you've won? And you know, Red Queen now looking like photorealistic, like in, you know, Extinction and Retribution. And you know, she just calmly says, behind you. And you know, she recruits Alice. You get a chance for revenge on Wesker. And she said, you know, in 48 hours. And then it's to the second. So, just, yeah. And Alice drives over spikes in the road, crashes but not harming herself. No crash in this movie harms anyone. It's like, am I watching, did I put in the wrong DVD? Am I watching, like, Suicide Squad? And you know, Red Queen describes where Retribution left off, but we don't get to see it. You know, unlike the Afterlife and Retribution openings. And, you know, yes, they capture her strung, you know, she gets strung by her feet, and they just keep hitting her in the stomach. And, you know, she laughs. I think Paul thinks that that's amazing, because he does that several times in this movie, and it's also an Extinction, you know, like, oh, the you know, dude's like curb stomping, you know, Alice, and then she just laughs and says, is that all you got, or something. Just, dude, it's not that cool. It's really, it's okay, but it's not that cool. And but yeah, you know, I enjoyed the fight. And, you know, as pointed out in the Midnight Screens, but also noted it, yeah, the Umbrella troops, they're just like playing possum or something, just waiting for, you know, did they know that she was going to show up? Did like the red, did you know, yeah, actually, no, they don't even know yet, do they? At that point, I don't think Umbrella knows, Red Queen knows, but not Umbrella, that she's on her way. I don't think they know at that point, so they couldn't fit, you know, and it's just, it's there because if it wasn't, then she would never fight a single Umbrella, you know, stormtrooper. That's basically why it's there. And, you know, she tries to use the motorcycle, it zaps her unauthorized user, and she wakes up 20 hours. It's just, yeah. And the, you know, and Isaacs comes down, you know, crosses hung from the ceiling. Yeah, that's when he realized, you know, someone told you something. And yeah. She's an unbeliever, cast her out. And they throw her out the back of the tank. She's like tied to it. Zombies behind her in the thousands. You know, it's like Mad Max Fury Road, except not quite desert. And just, yeah. And Isaac is talking Old Testament, cleanse the world. Which is, and then later when you meet the original Isaacs, he doesn't talk like that at all. I don't know, maybe the idea is supposed to be that he changed his mind, or he calmed down once all these people were dead or something. But yeah, the two are very different, and I feel like the movie should have done more to explain that. Or again, maybe I missed it. There are a lot of revelations there near the end. We reached the city in just under 12 hours. Even you can't run for that long. And And yeah, he updates Wesker on what's happened. See, this scene is basically necessary. And Wesker sets the hive's security level to maximum. And, you know, the guard takes his eyes off Alice, and that's all that was necessary. It wouldn't be that difficult to properly, like, hypothetically, if they had something in the way, like, once they have her running there, you know, again, Mad Max Fury Road, they actually strap him to the thing, you know, so it's not, in this, all they needed was like a barrier, just don't have the guy standing right where she can get to him, you know, just once she's down there in a chain, just like have like a shield between that, you know, with a hole in the middle that the chain goes through, the rope goes through. But yeah, you know, he looks away for a second and she jumps up. But yeah, it's a pretty cool fight between her and Isaacs on top of the tank, and I like the bit where Lincoln rope around his neck and, you know, yank it, and his face, you know, face plants the pole. And yeah, it's pretty cool to see a fight on top of a moving vehicle. I haven't seen that in a lot in new action films, but I don't watch all of them, so. And, you know, another tank fires a minigun at them, so I guess they don't mind killing Isaacs. And maybe the idea is that, you know, oh, but he's just a clone. Yeah, but the original Isaacs isn't even awake at this point. Who's gonna... Literally, he appears to be running Umbrella, and he certainly thinks he's the original one. Doesn't it bother him that they're firing a minigun at them? And, again, all they had to do was wait, just don't have them fire with the minigun, because... just a minute later, she's on her own, and then they fire the minigun. If that was the first time they fired the minigun, there wouldn't be a logical problem there. Now, and, you know, oh, you can't use that, you know, use the motorcycle, and she chops off his hands, and yeah. And they fire the minigun, fire rockets. It's pretty cool. And a zombie bites Isaac's hand. And now, finally, minutes after it was cut, finally we see him go inside and they put plastic over the wound. We should have seen that immediately after she cuts the hand and leaps off. Then we see him go inside and put the plastic on. Why did he wait for like a minute or two up there, apparently bleeding profusely from there's a lot. A lot of blood is pumped to your hand. You know, you bleed really. Yeah, I'm not saying he'd bleed out. I'm not saying he would die in the time that it took there. But he'd get to be a lot weaker from that, and there's no reason. Again, it's just all they had to do was cut out. It's cut fine the way it is. Just take the part with Isaac's getting in. Move it up to, you know, she cuts the hand and jumps to the motorcycle, and then we see him go in, and then, yeah. And, let's see, yeah, and you know, she runs into that trap and wakes up, and he's about to stab her, as, you know, she holds him hostage, and, no, it's adrenaline, we need her awake, we need you awake, and, you know, Claire shows up, she and Alice recognize each other, and it jump cuts because that, you know, we know that she convinces the others to, yeah. And, you know, and then you have the Mexican standoff with Christian, I guess. You know, he pulls a gun on his own friends just to get, you know, because he's worried about Alice. I hated this guy from the moment I saw him, and I was really glad when he died. I'm sorry. Obviously, I wouldn't be saying that if he wasn't a fictional character. And you know, 12 hours left, so I guess she made the trip in less than 8 hours. She was driving faster than the tank was. And, you know, she points out we have to do it before Umbrella arrived with their tanks. And this, I have to admit, they actually kind of built this fairly smartly. You know, after she wakes up in the tank, you know, when we see the horde of zombies behind them, we realize how badass the tanks are. Then she gets to the city. We know that they're headed to the city, and she can tell them we have to set up before they arrive. And when they arrive, there's an actual action scene there, and yeah. And, and then, oh, why should I trust you? Okay, and he drinks a little, and then she drinks. You know that it's possible that the moment you start drinking, he, like, spits and, like, gets, like, an antidote to whatever he had or something. That's, yeah. And, and Alice explains about the airborne antivirus, and Claire is like, if you really release this, it's going to kill you. And Alice is like, I can live with that. Okay, those are not her exact words, but... And she's like, Alice, I can't... Are you kidding me? Thousands of people left alive for one person who is accepting her fate. Are you seriously going to try to talk her out? It's just unbelievable. I realize that maybe this is somewhat, maybe this goes along with Claire's previous... I can't say for sure, but maybe the Claire of the third movie would also have balked at that idea, but just... No, I'm sorry, that's too stupid. And, they could have warned me, watch your back. Again, that's decent enough setup. You let her slip through your fingers, or what's left of them. You're talking to your superior, apparently, according to this movie. And, Isaac picks up a knife. I had to turn my head to read, but I could actually read it. So that's, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And then, of course, that is an example of the setup not really, around the end of the movie, he finally arrives, and then all that happens is he kills the upgraded version, the original upgraded version, new and improved version of Dr. Isaacs, and that's it. Yeah, I'll get to that scene. And yeah, the Alice spots them, and ready the weapons, high explosive rounds, no survivors. And it's an army, what are we gonna do? We're gonna kill every last one of them. And, the tank is leading the zombies. I'm not 100% sure. Again, maybe it was in there and I just missed it. Why exactly is, does it smell like human flesh? Do they chase anything that moves with this ferocity? And, they fire that one fireball and it kills the leader of the one tank, which crashes slightly. That was really... Why didn't they just guard it better against that? But, yeah, that's... And then, oh, release the bait. And there's, a survivor there. There's a survivor! Open the gate! You idiot! Again, one person over the lives of thousands of humans. I don't mean to be cold, but your math doesn't check out. This is just... yeah. And this is, that's where Anderson's films are really, really frustrating. And then, once she gets close to them, then they shoot her, and only her, even though a ton of survivors are right there, and they're using a minigun. And then, the zombies get in, but the survivors kill them. I think they did. I forget if they killed them all, but yeah. And the bits of wall coming down was pretty cool. It really just, yeah, it's a medieval scene. It's very, very cool. And then that girl, whose name I don't know, was bitten on her throat and she dies, her last line being, ah, which I think may also have been her first line. I have no idea who she is or any, yeah. And they pour gasoline and light it, burning thousands of zombies down there. Very cool. And Alice zips lines down there and shoots them with a 3-barrel sawn-off shotgun, getting closer to the tank, pouring down gas, flare down there, burns it. And then somehow the guys get up before they caught on fire. It really seems like they wouldn't be, but yeah, very cool martial arts fight against the driver second in command. And then, you know, you're fast, but not too smart, and she shoots him, you know, more terrible one-liners, and this, maybe the black guys, and there are too many of these things still out there. Wow, that line was terribly delivered. That was dreadful acting. I'll take care of it. And then they use for bait the driver's second in command. I guess her shooting him in the chest only knocked the wind out of him. I guess the idea is like Kevlar or something. But then why did she just leave him like? But yeah, again, just Anderson's characters are idiots. And you know, there's 3 hours left, and you know, some of the prisoners from the tank, and as they point out in the midnight screens, you know, more bodies. We need some to die, and it made okay sense about the, you know, that part of the hive exposed by the blast. That's our way in. And you know, honestly, watching this, I kind of want like a 24 style real-time movie with the X hours left plot. Like, yeah, at the start, like 90 minutes until detonation or something, and then a 90-minute movie or so, and completely real time. That probably does already exist. That can't possibly. Yeah, I might have to see if you know of a movie, like, please put it in the comments, and I will strongly consider watching and reviewing it, because that just, I'm sorry, that makes too much sense to. I realize that's somewhat similar to Crank, but it's not quite Crank. Crank isn't consistently real time. And, you know, and Wesker uses the ice pick, and you think, oh, it's going to be in a scene later. I don't think they actually did use it. I think she imagines using it, but then it doesn't. Yeah. And, you know, the Red Queen gives him full control of the defenses. Again, that was a scene that we needed to see. And release the Cerberus, and then the, you know, dogs run fast. And they run and shoot. One of the prisoners is taken by dogs. Alice doesn't seem to care. You know, even the Matrix characters would show just a little emotion, especially over the death of allies. And they jump into water with the dogs not following. And, you know, there's this one dog that goes in and, like, drowns. So I guess the idea is that zombies can swim, but zombie dogs can't. And, yeah. Let's see. And then the one dog where they get out of the water, and the Mexican standoff dude dies. Very, like I said, glad. They run, the dogs stop, and it's like, oh, they must be afraid of the, yeah. Seal the hive, and then they have to run for it. Doors closing, and the zombie fights out of there. That's kind of cool. I will admit, I'm kind of glad that Paul pulled out the walls closing in one more time. Well, who am I kidding? He's definitely going to do it in the future again. And, you know, they're out of guns and ammo, which is a concept the NRA wake up in cold sweat about. And, you know, you see the meeting, Isaac's umbrella talking fate, explaining how we'll all die soon for, you know, more or less real-life reasons, and you know, we end the world on our terms. Kill everyone so Umbrella will live. And that actually, yeah, that is an idea that a villain would get that actually somewhat makes it. I mean, finally, they actually kind of, Umbrella actually seems to have a plan that makes some kind of sense still, you know, so, yeah. And then, you know, I'm sorry, but it was way too obvious. Mila Jovovich has a very distinctive voice. Obviously, that's her in old age makeup in the meeting. You know, right when you see that, it's like, oh, okay, that's definitely her in old age makeup. I would have recognized it even if I didn't know from trailers that we were going to see an old age makeup Alice at any, you know, even if I didn't know that at some point in the movie we were gonna get that. And, and Red Queen tells, oh, my program, it's like the 3 laws of robotics, she has to serve Umbrella, but she has to maintain human life, and that is, yeah, again, I mean, that's, I forget which story, but yeah, there's definitely, I'm not even 100%, is it one of the stories in I Am Robot, in the proper I Am Robot, not the terrible movie, okay, the enjoyable enough stupid movie. No, I forget if it's part of the original short story or if it's a story written later but built on those same ideas. But yeah, and there's an put it in. Umbrella had an informant in the city, and it's highly likely that is there. And they meet Isaac. It's like, what happened here? Water. I never seen water do that. Again, not laughing at my own joke, laughing at the joke that I am referencing. And yeah, they reach the hive around halfway through the film. I respect that. It bothers me in the first movie that it takes them half the movie to encounter any zombies because it's a zombie movie. But here, you have stuff that happens before. And I mean, they couldn't possibly have an entire movie that is purely about Alice inside an Umbrella facility. Now, could they? Again, 2 movies in a row, I mean. And, he stabs the dude and then drinks. Man, okay, you don't have to share your water. Calm down. And yeah, they get to the air intake for the hive. Again, I understand why they need to use the air intake, and then it gets turned on. It's the annoying thing is the stupidity of then, oh, it kills the one person, and then it turns off. And I get why it turns off. It's turning off because the power is, nevertheless, it's kind of stupid that it's not, and it would be so much more satisfying if they somehow managed to, like, block it or something. But yeah, they're slipping between them, and then the power comes on, and they see the light come on. That's kind of cool. Again, instead of him just suddenly having it come on, instead he's sometimes he realizes, yeah, if I show all the lights gradually coming up, we know exactly what that means, even if Alice didn't say it. And, the blades start moving, and I have to dodge through yeah. And now Alice risks her life to save that one, despite not caring about the others. Reverse polarity of the turbine. The blades are sucking, like the movie. And, you see the bag shredded to blades because Anderson cannot get enough of, like, seeing one small thing be, like, cut, to say, ooh, this is going to cut Superman. The bag wasn't, I mean, the bag presumably, actually, wait, was there any metal in that bag? Come to think of it. Anyway, yeah, but both of them, yeah. First she almost hits the blades, but then, and then she does hit the blades, becomes tomato sauce, making the whole bit of, like, trying to save her completely pointless, and then the power comes off, and she, but Alice does seem upset this time, it's just, and I think that was Ruby Rose, so, yeah, it was that thing of, like, no, you're an up-and-coming action star or something, so we want you to, help raise the profitability of the movie. And, and we see that Isaac's killed everyone in the tank, so he's, like, gone full, like, he's basically like a serial killer at this point. If this movie had a Dexter character, he would be tracking down Isaac's. It's pretty ridiculous how smoothly he makes that transition. Suddenly he's just killing everybody. And and it was around here that, yeah, I wrote these notes at, just, as I was thinking. Here are some things. Some of the following things are things that I just realized around this time watching the movie. And yeah, if they wanted to infect the world, was Spence in the first movie actually working in Umbrella's interests? And yeah, you have the handheld hologram, and now they're in Cube. And again, I noted that before hearing the midnight screenings. More so than the people in AVP were. And you have the really far drop. Again, that was a decently enough. Again, if the movie had just had him drop all the way, that wouldn't have been as effective. But instead, we do have, first he drops and we think, oh no, and then he lands a few, oh no, and he hangs on to the end, and it raises up, and just, yeah, and this time it actually makes sense that the death trap is death trapping. It's not like the decapitating elevator in the first movie. And yeah, and we realized that the original Alice is Alicia. Man, that's obvious. They couldn't have just a little bit. How about like the yeah, like maybe if her first name was Allie, or maybe even her first name is an A something, and then her middle name is Lee, like the Asian name Lee, and then her last name starts with a C or a CE or something, and then after she's been referred to as something, finally, yeah, and after she's been referred to as just the A name, they say that her middle name is this and her last name is this. That makes Alice, yeah, or make it like Alice is actually an not anagram, what's it called? When yeah, a shortening of a program name or something. But I mean, if you might actually realize that Alice is actually Alicia half a minute into the movie, because really all the little a lot of the little pieces of the puzzle are right there. But yeah, and every Alice we've seen is a clone that had the aging that looked 90 when 25, reversed by the T-virus. And you have the big muscly thing. Suddenly it has predator vision. It's ridiculous. And she swings and whip chains as a weapon against the creature. Excuse me, I don't know the game, so I don't know if it's from one of those, but I thought that it was a decent creature, this big, muscly, melted skin humanoid, and I appreciate that it didn't overstay its welcome. I don't think Nemesis did either, but I think when Retribution brought back the Axemen, that was maybe okay. We've seen this, the Axeman in Afterlife. No, overall, I don't think he overstayed his welcome either. So that he's done fine on. But and yeah, she gets the chain stuck in it, and she outruns it, and it tears itself apart. And she'll be there in 7 minutes and wake them. Only an emergency can. Yeah, and Isaacs drives the tank down the pit. It doesn't take it well. And Claire wakes up in a glass cage with blood on the walls, and then yeah, that was a decent enough. And they're in the laser room. We get flashback clips to the first movie, and then they run into the room with the core. And let's see. And actually, yeah, there's a flashback later. She handed him a weapon, but there are no bullets in it. I'm sorry, but you can tell it has a certain weight depending on what the, yeah, and just, yeah, it's the let me think. I want to say that the one, I think Suicide Squad made the reference, but I think they actually did do it in an episode of Burn Notice. I want to say is where, and I feel like I've seen it in some other movie or something, but what you should have had her do, and I realized this would have been a little difficult for her to do without him noticing at all, but something like if the, you know, yeah, remove the firing pin, because then you can't feel that, because there's almost no difference in weight. Yeah, there's no difference in weight that a human being can just notice from just having it. But pulling the trigger is not going to fire the gun, and that's not something you can just fix, you know. Actually, yeah, all that it would have to, if either Wesker or Isaacs had a clip for that, for the gun, for that type of gun, they could have thrown it to him and he would have been ready to shoot within seconds. And, you know, and the room with the core turns out to be an elevator platform, and they're going to the lowest areas of the hive. And yeah, I feel like that's, you know, it didn't seem like that was what it was in the first movie, but yeah, you know, it looked good. When you see, you know, the elevator platform and you're seeing all the, you know, these thousands of people, you know, Umbrella High Command waiting out the apocalypse. Yeah, skip that movie. Go to Afterlife instead, if you're gonna watch this series and all. But anyway, yeah, you know, it looked pretty good. I'm not sure it was in the Umbrella shape overall, but they built all that under the city. Man, that must have taken a while. I'm also not 100% sure how you get easily to one of those cryotubes. I guess maybe they have smaller elevators near the individual tubes. Otherwise, yeah. Anyway, and you know, the Wesker wakes up the original. Isaac, follow me to victory. Claire MacGyver's a small bomb, makes a hole in the glass and escapes, and Wesker is seen close to her, and I do think it was decent when then she comes into the room, and then, you know, a moment later, Wesker's there behind her. You know, for a second there, you're not quite sure, did Wesker manage to stop her, or, yeah. And, yeah, and the you know, platforms over the water, and they end up at the Wesker office, or the office that Wesker was in. And, you know, Isaacs has the antivirus and is like, you know, if I drop this, then you won't ever get, you know. And you know, Alice puts her weapon on the ground, but then he puts it in his pocket. There's no dead man switch or anything. And again, that's where I guess he's expressing his he's arrogant, you know. But again, all they had to do was have some kind of dead man switch, and then her outthink the dead, you know, figure some way to, yeah. And, you know, and she imagines how she'd take out Isaacs, and they all seem to work out, but then he can do it too, and no, she failed because he has super speed. You know, what is this, Get Carter with superpowers? Or I suppose you could say it's the next level in the... Actually, they did do that in Sherlock Holmes, yeah. And, you know, he is the original, and Alice is a clone. Alicia is still alive, and, you know, she's the one who actually betrayed them, and she still did age after, yeah. And I do actually think, I mean, you know, why don't you remember the, you know, I guess the idea being that, like, she didn't get memories. Why wouldn't they just give her the memories of of Alicia's childhood? It seems like they could have done that earlier than the end of the movie. Yeah. And that does seem like, why didn't she think about that in the first movie before before the events of the first movie, rather? Because there she did lose some of her memory. And yeah, if this facility where they were expecting to ride out the apocalypse was under the hive, why did they develop the virus in the hive? And how did the virus not hit them when, when it did get out at the end of O2 and the start of Apocalypse? Now, and I mean, in the second movie, they talk about, like, we have to make sure that it stays within Raccoon City. They never mention that. How can we be sure that no one gets into, a single line would just, how can we be sure they don't make it, that no zombie gets into the, yeah. If the, yeah, once the Red Queen, let's see. Well, I suppose, yeah, okay, they wouldn't be able to get past the security and such, but it's airborne, though. It wouldn't take very much if it can get around the hive itself, not the bottom hive, I guess. Yeah. But again, there's no way Anderson had planned this when he wrote the first movie or the second movie. And let's see. And, adult Alicia fires Wesker Robocop style so Red Queen can chop his foot off, I can't do any harm to any Umbrella employee. Wesker, you're fired. And, yeah, how did you know I betrayed you? You're still alive. Randomly so, yeah. It didn't, like, it might as well have been him who got killed in the fan. It's not like he's done a million little things that make it, like, I guess the first movie kind of has that problem as well. Spencer, yeah. So, it's not new to Paul. And, yeah, clearly Isaacs now outranks Wesker, contradicting Extinction. But, something that is a little cool, Alicia is actually played by Milla Jovovich's daughter, so the age thing kind of makes sense. The idea being that Alicia is what Alice looked like at age 9, and that kind of sort of, I'll admit it, I'm kind of a sucker for when they do that kind of thing, when they're like, oh, look at the younger you, and it's literally their offspring or brother or something like that. And again, something I realized at this point in watching the movie, the ending of this one won't matter. They can just retcon it at the start of the next one like they did at the start of this one. And that's the really big mistake of the thing with this retcon. At this point, none of the endings, none of the movies, if they keep making movies in this series, none of them are going to matter as much as Extinction, Afterlife, and Retribution didn't matter. But, well, arguably the ending of Retribution. Actually, no. Wait, what did they accomplish by blowing up that facility again? Was it doing anything other than running? According to this movie, it wasn't even the main one. So, which is, again, a retcon. So, yeah, anyway. You're dying. Just get on with it. And, he's holding an explosive like T2 and Punisher. And it's amazing how Red Queen is like, you and the Umbrella High Command, you're all going to die down here. Because if she just said, you're all going to die down here, you'd be like, Alice too? But nope, they had to really awkwardly such a stilted line to make sure that what she said there made sense, and because we couldn't possibly have a movie with the Red Queen without the Red Queen saying that. And I wasn't running, and he predicts their bullets, and that fight is somewhat similar to the Afterlife ending fight, and yeah, in both cases I enjoyed it. And and he knocks her into the laser room, and she runs, and the lasers start out somewhat fairer than the ones in the first one ended up, at least. And this scene would work a lot better if Extinction didn't already have her escape it. Again, there's no way that Paul planned this movie when he wrote the other ones. But yeah, the dodging of the lasers was pretty cool. And she stabs him in the foot, and the hand-to-hand fight in the laser hallway, and him curb stomping her. She laughs, "Is that all you got? 'Cause if it is, I'm gonna have to kill you." Paul, please outsource your one-liners. They are terrible. And they both get out of the way of the laser, and he holds her hand in place, lasers cutting off her fingers. "We've played a long game, you and I, but now it's over." And she dropped a grenade in his pocket, pulled the pin, and the explosion barely seems to affect him. At that point, I was like, am I watching like a made-for-TV movie, possibly PG rated or something? Why didn't the explosion take off like a chunk of his leg or something? I made you. Yeah, big mistake. See, even Anderson admits it and accepts responsibility. And we have the cliche of, less than 1 minute left. And the Isaacs clone brought the zombies there, and Isaacs antagonizes his clone like an idiot and gets himself killed. And then everything just dies all at once, basically. The antivirus is released and just immediately works at these thousands of zombies. Again, in the first two movies, it's you have to do an injection, and in Extinction we see that the super zombies don't even, what happened to them? Are the ones in this movie not super zombies? Because that was kind of, well, actually, I guess those were very specific zombies. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, before, an injection can stop the infection, but now it just kills all these. I don't know, maybe it is a different antivirus, but yeah. And Alice collapses for the umpteenth time in this series. Why am I still alive? Because this series refuses to die. And Alice is uninfected because they lied to her to risk humanity's survival, to prove if she is or isn't willing to die to save the world. Because otherwise, if she wasn't willing to die herself, then screw the last thousands of people left alive. It's just, yeah. And then they give her all the memories, and, not having read the IMDb trivia before, before watching the movie, before noting this, these are clearly home movies of Mila's daughter, and since, yeah, I like it. Again, I gotta like when they do that sort of thing, and, yeah, it works. It's like, oh, finally, she's getting this, yeah. And then she says, like, oh, it could take years for the antivirus to spread by the winds. Not only could it take a lot of time, does Paul Anderson not know how this kind of thing works? It's not just going to keep being there. It's not, does it, like, does the antivirus, like, somehow, like, is it an actual virus? Is it going to keep itself alive, spreading across? Why didn't they make that the thing? Just say, this virus undoes the other virus, and now every living person has to carry the new virus. and you have to get in contact with every living human being to make sure that the antivirus works. That would have been so much better. Instead, you have this BS about how it's going to spread with the wind. Yes, it's going to dissipate, and it's not going to cover very much. Not when there's that little of it. It's just baffling how little of an understanding of this he has. It's not a difficult concept, just my work is not done, so they might make more. But if Umbrella will still have a presence and it's not a reboot, it would be ridiculous. And if they don't have a presence, I'm not sure it would be all that interesting. I mean, at that point, it is just going around killing zombies, looking for survivors. You know, I mean, okay, you still have, yeah, and Alice now for sure has no abilities. Well, she didn't have abilities at the start of the film either, but yeah, you know, the identity of this series of movies would pretty much be gone there. Now, let's see. Plot. Now, I believe the following is a goof. I have got to learn to source this stuff. A goof from the IMDb page, and I just, you know, yeah, I copied this in without reading it, and I've now read it. At the end of the film, there's no way that the real Isaacs could catch up to Alice and catch the vial of antivirus when she drops it. He would have had to be riding the elevator up from the hive with Alice. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, you know, the ethics of cloning and whether or not a clone should be given human rights is touched upon some in Retribution. And this gets into whether a clone could come to think they weren't a clone, you know, and kind of sort of whether memories make a person's identity. And, you know, I wondered if Alice being cloned and or controlled by Umbrella would take away too much. And I mean, on some level, maybe, yeah. Now, characters. And this is also from Wiki, and this is the spoiler stuff that I made sure to not read before. Now, yeah, Miliovich is Alice, former Umbrella security officer turned rogue fighter, who's been captured by the Umbrella Science. Yeah, this is just what happened in the movies. Yeah, she's revealed to be a clone, which has been created by Umbrella. Yeah, and it's stated that Wesker never gave Alice her powers back. It was a ploy for plot to get her to Washington. What? Yeah, and that was just supposed to, and then Wesker left her for dead, I guess. He didn't kill her. He had superpowers and she didn't. So why didn't he kill her? Again, just the way to fix this is for the Wesker in this movie to be a clone. And like you know, we lost contact with the clone, but there's no way she could have survived that or something. But how did he not kill her and get back to base without just, yeah. And yeah, and Jovovich also plays the role as the older Alicia Marcus. And yeah, and Wesker dies through blood loss, resulting in his legs being amputated by a door while holding the detonator. As blunt ones at the hive. And killed the employees, including himself and Alicia. Yeah. Oh, that's Ruby Rose. No, she's doing. Yeah, that's written weirdly. Anyway, yeah, and Doc, the renegade spy. And, you know, he's shot dead by Claire. I feel like, again, and that's something a lot of Hollywood movies do. She could have it would have been more interesting. Like, yeah, if she didn't quite kill him, but she did some, like, there's yeah, some kind of, like, you know, the, yeah, like, you know, what if it's, yeah, let's say that, you know, he's like, no, but it's me, you know, and she says, it is you. You once said you'd give your right arm for me. Well, I'm coming to collect, or something, like, you know, instead of just, I mean, he would still die in, yeah. And let's see. Yeah, and Ever Gabo Anderson, if that's how you pronounce it, as the Red Queen, the artificial intelligence created by Umbrella, and Alice Nemesis, who enlists her help to get the airborne antivirus created by Umbrella, enabling Alice to destroy the remaining organisms infected with the virus in contact. And Anderson also plays the role of young Alicia Marcus. Yeah. And quotes. And these I have not read. I took them directly from the IMDb quotes. And I'm not going to read the ones that are... Yeah, I have the one with Albert Wesker, you're fired. You're dying, just get on with it. And yeah, the whole opening. And it, you know, in a few minutes, Claire will be dead along with everybody you know. That's sweet. And the, yeah. And let's see, that's... And they have Isaac's confronting his clone. And I do think that it was a decent setup with, you know, sometimes I feel like this has been my whole life, running, killing. And it has, you know. So, yeah. Okay, that brings us to critics, users. And these are Metacritic reviews that had spoilers and that I have not read yet. I'm gonna try to skim, see if this is something I particularly want to read out loud. And yeah, and this Wesker was a bad guy, then a good one, again bad. Explanation: the rescue was a trap. Why not left Alice to rot in the base and kill her in stasis? Exactly. And people saying that they enjoyed the others, but the movie was hard to watch. Yeah, and the, you know, let's see. Apparently, the whole story, the 5 sequels, could have been avoided if Alice just dropped the vial of antivirus outside in the air instead of trying to inject Matt, because apparently that's enough to cover the whole world and destroy the T-virus and all mutations. That's, yeah. And to quote, I still can't figure out why the last movie's ending was completely skipped over. Maybe because it would have actually been entertaining. And really, I mean, that could have been the siege scene in this movie. You know, the if the I could have respected if this movie had started with other survivors realizing that there's a good reason for them to go to Washington, and then maybe half an hour or so passes of them arriving, and then they get there, they meet Alice, and then we have the scene from the ending of Retribution. That, I think, could, and then, you know, that's your big siege, and maybe then you have the Return to the Hive thing. You know, yeah, have the big siege that takes out so many zombies that they can actually travel. Instead, it's just, yeah, I mean, these thousands either dead or lured away, I guess. And let's see. Yeah, you know, the Umbrella pretty much already succeeded with only like 1,000 or so people left on the planet, yet they are still trying to stop Alice like it even mattered anymore. The movie conflicts with the previous plot lines in its own series for no good reason, complete lack of ideas maybe. And I suppose that is it. Yes. And that is also 2 hours and 42 minutes. So I hope this was as exhilarating and enjoyable for you as it was for me. I suppose this is where I would light up if I was a smoker. See you next time. Please comment, thumbs up, and subscribe for more content.